As you know, I like to begin with my audio check. It's pretty quiet in here, so I don't think I have to. Actually, hotel rooms are better than my damn studio. Figure that one out. Sounds good. Also, oh, Nanny Puffins, you look pretty good with that wrench. How'd that happen? Monica Farrow just got a wrench, gave a couple other wrenches out. All right. Had a good time in San Diego. Yeah, Camille, you might want to hold off on that baptism. After that, they're going to try to get you to eat a cracker, drink some juice. But you have to say that it's the actual flesh of blood and the flesh of Jesus and the blood of Jesus. Listen, guys, somebody said Jason's all over that Christian right. You're absolutely correct. I'm not going to back up off this. Of course, I'm going to do other videos on Nemesis X. Different palindromes I've been discovering in history. My Phoenix research will never stop. As a matter of fact, you're going to see some new Phoenix material in here that was stolen by the church. They tried to incorporate that. Christianity in its inception was entirely spiritual. An immortal being has no need of anything in physicality whatsoever to justify anything in its perpetuity. If you're immortal, you're immortal. There's nothing in the physical world that's going to alter that. So this carnalization of a very ancient belief, and yes, the early Christian fathers admitted that Christianity antedates Jesus. Let me repeat that real quick because I can show them to you, and I have in my Dark Scriptures playlist. Church fathers literally published that what we hold to be true as Christianity is actually far more ancient than Jesus. That's my sole issue here, is that Christianity is ancient. The fundamental tenets of the Gnosis go back a long way. It is the carnalization of an ancient faith that causes all the problems. It's what these apologetics studies do. Try to fit the Jesus story into a historical context for which it does not belong. This forces them to accept things as true that are patently untrue. I just recently itemized just a few, like 12 or 13 or 14 of the forged texts. Christianity required an entire library full of forged texts in order to launch. What many people don't know is that through the process of editing, through 37 or 38 church councils, it was finally decided which of the 800 Christian texts that we could actually run with, because they're all forgeries, but some of them had terrible mistakes. So, subject matter of this video is going to go in a little bit different direction. I'm going to show you things that were incorporated into Christianity that did not originally belong there, and how Jesus literally assumed all the attributes of a much more ancient faith. In the 1st century AD, there's no hint of Jesus. There's no hint of a miracle worker. There's no hint of a sun darkening, an earthquake. Nothing about this miraculous gospel narrative is found in the 1st century writings. Now, they're found in the interpolated Christian writings, but no one in the world had those but Christians, and they're self-referencing. They reference each other. I'm going to address some of those here because they've been busted over and over and over, lying. Yeah, some of these Christian channels out there that are promoting, oh, look, this text here, this gospel here said this, Jason's wrong. I'm going to collapse that house of cards. What I'm doing right now is just putting out videos just for general consumption. But what these guys have actually done is stirred something in me that I finally decided I'm going to go ahead and write another book. And this book is going to be a scathing condemnation of Christianity. I'm going to put my all into it. I've already done the research. I've already got the data. I just got to put it together. So you guys have seen it in piecemeal in my Dark Scriptures playlist. But you haven't seen all my notes. Jamie Robbins has been in Texas here, and he's held my notes, but you haven't seen them all put together. There's nothing to the historicity of Jesus. It just doesn't exist, and nor do you need it. You don't need it. Don't even need it. A true loving God would not create the cult of the crucified God in order that you, who were born innocent, should assume guilt, and then transpose that guilt onto this individual who's seemingly perfect and never sinned in his life, and gets whipped and goes through all the elements of the ancient mysteries. This great, beautiful Greek amphitheater stage play. Cut 1, cut 2, cut 3, cut 4, cut 5. That's the gospel narrative. 3.5 years all compressed into this beautiful little story. But these things in this travel time could have never happened that way. Critical thinking collapses Christianity as a historical narrative. But Christianity as a spiritual faith is I'm all on board. It's profound. Remember, I tell you guys all the time, the red letter editions of the Bible that show the actual words of Jesus, that's the logos there, and it's timeless. And many of those things have been found in Buddhist writings. They've been found in Hindu writings. They've been found in Egyptian ossuaries or in wall texts. They've been found in Near Eastern texts. We have so much data from the ancient world that has been rehashed and found in the New Testament. So let's get to that. My audio's good. Man, this chat's moving faster than I can keep up with. Hey, Errol, we had some fun, didn't we, man? Had some fun. All right. Yeah, and all these guys are welcome. They want to bring their best. I don't care. A lot of you guys dropping Wes Huff's name. Yeah, I'm not impressed with him anymore. I was with his initial Billy video until I saw how starving the Christian right was for anything that would benefit their cause and how they pounced. And then I'm not the only one. I think morgue officials also noticed it. It's like, come on, guys. You guys are counting this a victory? Billy Carson, really? Billy Carson? That's a victory? Come on, man. I much prefer, in the interest of fairness, that all these Christian podcasters, Wes Huff leading the charge, just call me out. Call me out, man. Put me to the test, man. Because that you calling Billy Carson a victory, that's embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing. So, yeah, man. Any of those guys? Yeah. I'm thinking I told you guys in my predictions videos 4 years ago, Christian Reich, they're not just gonna rise, they're gonna be networked together. You already know who's behind them. You already know the tiny hats are the ones that fund them, put them out. They're mutually beneficial. I'm going to show you some information in this video where the exact same thing was going on in the 1st and 2nd century AD. Yeah, tiny hats were pissing the Romans off. And when the Romans came in, tiny hats gave up the Gnostics. Gnostics took the fall every time. This is when Christianity was starting to develop. And then they started carnalizing it, trying to convince each other that maybe this story might have really happened in historical times, and they're trying to find a place to fit it. It was a 180-year process trying to find a place to fit this, and only after 150 years did they find a place to fit it. But anything that has directly affected the field will always be seen in calendrics. I tell you guys this all the time. It's why I've made so many amazing discoveries using ancient calendrical systems to show you exactly why the world is the way it is today. I'm going to show you that in this too. because the alleged crucifixion event was 33 AD. In the isometric projections, in the calendrics, in the cross-calendrical parallels, in the date sequence predictive analytic structuring that I've showed you guys in between 41 different ancient and modern calendars that I've published in Chronicon, the year 33 AD comes up as not a single blip anywhere, and that is weird. Nothing. It is mathematically connected to nothing in world history. 33 AD. And again, 30, there's that number again, 33. I told you guys, I have a video showing you the origins of Freemasonry and who really created it and why. Their whole system is based off the number 33. I have another video going into great detail about how the number 33 was associated as something hidden in this system, this infiltration system that was designed by these people because they had lost their capital city to Rome. And the secret symbol was the phoenix. And these people held the phoenix as some special knowledge. Any one of you who has ever seen my 4.5-hour occultist mysterium, the Codex Judaicus video, where I show the phoenix in Hebrew letters hidden through all these alchemical texts, you'll understand what I'm talking about. That they always have the phoenix. It is their symbol, and there's a reason for this. So this video, like I said, is going to be going in new directions, things we've never covered before. Interesting pick in the background. Yeah, I don't choose hotel art. Frankly, I didn't even notice it until I'm looking in the screen right now. Wow. Whole lot of things are going on in 33 AD, but I'm sorry, Jesus being crucified wasn't one of them. All right, we're real close to 1,000 in the chat. Launch this presentation. All right, I'm going to remove that video from studio. Let's see. All right. Oh, Steven Segura, don't get me started. Who documented the sun darkening in that time period? Well, there's a lot of biblical scholars that have a problem with that little sun darkening and earthquake episode, because the only places it's ever found are in Christian writings, Christian fathers' writings that later were found by scholars to be forgeries. Yeah, well, let's talk about that too. I'm going to get into that too. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, we got well over 1,000 people in the chat. We're good now. So the 1st century AD, you don't have to take my word for this. It is the most documented century up until the 16th century. It is the most documented century we have in world history. So many ancient authors' writings have survived. So many cross-reference pieces have been put back together. Yeah, scholars can literally put back text together by putting all the fragments together that are mentioned by the hundreds of authors extant at the time. And authors used to quote each other all the time. And you can put these quotes together and literally put almost a fully intact text together of what somebody had said. This is a practice that scholarship has employed for a very long period of time. It helps them identify redacted portions, interpolations, and colophons. So the 1st century AD was, we can start with year 1. In year 1, it was a Roman Emperor Augustus. He literally ordered the burning of over 2,000 Greek religious and prophetic texts. That's how the first century started, just like that. And by 4 AD, there was a huge controversy going on when the census of Rome reached Judea, and Rome was trying to count all the people in its provincial holdings. It was during the governorship of I believe his name is Quirinius. I may be mispronouncing it, but the census was very unpopular with the Jews. It was very unpopular in Palestine, and it caused an uprising. And the Romans realized, well, damn, we have a problem here. These Jews are pretty networked together. And real quick, the Romans got introduced to a Jewish cult of the assassins called the Sicarii. So the Sicarii were the dagger men. So in 4 AD is when the census began, but it was a 10-year process counting everybody in the Roman Empire. In 14 AD, the census of Rome, according to the Ancrian, again, these are Latin terms, Ancrian marble. This is an inscription, and it totaled the Roman citizens at 4,937,000 people. This does not count everyone else. This is Roman citizens. This is Italy, Rome. And in the provinces, many of them were Roman citizens as well, especially land and slaveholders. But the Roman Empire was at least over 50 million people. Yeah, they just weren't citizens. So 3 years later, in 17 AD, we have a major earthquake that levels the Greek cities of the Roman province of Asia Minor, and Lydia. This is like Hittite Anatolia, Turkey today. So the Roman historian Tacitus, who Christians like to quote a lot, we're going to address that. But the Roman historian Tacitus, he wrote that the quake occurred at nighttime and without warning. And those who sought refuge in the fields, running away from the trembling cities, they were swallowed up in the earth itself from the vibrating earth. The locals related that the whole mountains appeared and others just completely vanished in Turkey and in the Asia Minor area. The most famous cities destroyed were Sardis and Philadelphia. These are two of the 7 churches in the book of Revelation. But the book of Revelation wasn't written until about 60 years after this happened. So the destruction of the Lydian cities is very well documented. 12 cities were completely destroyed at night, and the topography of the entire region was altered. The historians of the day were afire writing about this. Everybody knew. The news traveled everywhere. It's a huge, major event. And my Archaix veterans know what I'm talking about. This was the 792nd year of the Greek Olympiad calendar, the calendar of Apollo, the destroyer. 792 years is the periodicity of the Nemesis X object. So just 2 years later, the reason I'm telling you this, these are the things going on in the world at the time. And they're very well recorded and written about and supported by archaeology. But 19 AD, Tiberius Caesar formally barred all the Jews from Rome, even deporting all the Jews that he could find. The Jews were seen as subversive, even attempting to meddle in Roman administrative affairs. Concerning the Jews at the time, Seneca wrote, I'm going to quote him, direct quote, "When meanwhile the customs that the accursed nation have gained such strength that they have now been received in all lands, the conquered have now given laws to their conquerors," talking about how the Jews flipped the script on them. So Tiberius Caesar himself said, I'm quoting Tiberius Caesar, "Alone of all nations the Jews alone of all nations avoided dealing with any other people and looked upon all men as their enemies. Remember, this is just prior to Rome completely destroying Jerusalem in AD 70. So we have a few years after that, 8 years after that, another famous event, well written about it at the time, 27 AD, a hastily constructed amphitheater built by a man named Attilius, whatever, of Fedni. The whole amphitheater, under the weight of 50,000 people, collapsed, killing and mutilating the 50,000 people of all ages from all over Rome, citizens, non-citizens. Many of them remained buried in the rubble and crushed for days before they were rescued, the survivors. I don't know what happened to Attilius. I'm pretty sure they executed him. But this was a big event, a real big event of the day. It's in the historical record. So while all this is going on a daily basis, people from Hindustan, northern India, the East, Hare Krishnas, Buddhists, they are flooding the Near East. The Mediterranean world during this period was being flooded with Eastern teachings. Buddhists were taking up positions in all these cities and cultures. They weren't seen as a threat. They were very philosophical. Their teaching method was parables. This isn't Jason telling you this. This is the historical record. Any historian worth his mettle about the first century AD knows that Buddhism was imported into the area en masse. And the largest center of Buddhism in the Mediterranean world, outside of India, was Antioch. Perhaps it's just a coincidence that the early church historians say that Christianity was born at Antioch. It was during this exact time, this wave of Buddhists, Hare Krishnas coming into the area from India. Two different religions, but they're very, very similar. Rome subdues Egypt even more. The North African coast, King Juba II of Mauritania has to flee. Fleets of ships leave. It's believed they make it to Central America. But Mauritania collapses and becomes subservient to Rome. As Rome over and over and over sends legions against the Germans and are repelled. You know, Teutoburg Forest and all that. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to do with these Germans, so they only go to the Rhine, and they set up a perimeter at the Rhine. But Rome also sends their legionnaires into Spain. Rome sends their legionnaires north of Greece. Rome sends their legionnaires across the Atlantic to Britain. This is all going on. And while all this is happening, through all of this in the first century AD, the Romans are dealing with a lot of internal issues involving Jewish population and Jewish intrigues, and how the Jews keep getting implicated in all kinds of things, and yet they start scapegoating the Gnostics. And they start setting the Gnostics up to take a fall for everything that they themselves are being accused of. So these Gnostics did not believe in a historical interpretation to their faith. To them, it was all spiritual, every bit of it. So there's a lot of historians. I'm going to cite them for you in a future video when I get all these notes better prepared. But there are a lot of ancient writers. We're talking about Middle Ages, Renaissance era, and modern scholars from the higher criticism period of the late 1800s to 1940s. there's a lot that all agree that Paul was not a carnalized Christian. That the Apostle Paul, who provided us 13 books of the New Testament, was originally a student of the Gnosis. His writings read like he's a student of the Gnosis. And the only few references to Jesus are very general. Nothing about his personal life, nothing about his miracles, nothing about his the virgin birth, the three wise men, the star over Bethlehem, all this crap that's been added to the story. None of that's in Paul's writings. None of it. The excuse the Christians give is that, well, Paul didn't really know Jesus. He didn't meet Jesus. Yeah, well, that's not good enough, because you didn't meet Jesus either. But when you're trying to convince somebody that Jesus is real, you're real quick to say he healed the blind. You're real quick to say he resurrected the dead. You're real quick to say he turned water into wine. He walked on water. Paul never said those things. Paul is not known to the first Christian chronicler, Justin Martyr. That's not good. That does not help the Christian cause at all. Church Father Justin Martyr did not even know who Paul was. Never mentioned him or his epistles. Not one epistle of Paul is mentioned by the Church Father Justin Martyr. Now, the book of Acts, chapter 24 somewhere, it reads that Paul was known to the Jews everywhere. That's in the New Testament. You don't even need to go look that up. Many of you who know your New Testament know that. You've had it read to you many times, that Paul was known to the Jews everywhere. Well, the Jewish historian Flavius Josephus never mentioned Paul in his exhaustive histories. You know his histories are huge, 3 huge books. Flavius Josephus just didn't know who Paul was. Never cited one of the epistles. Nothing. Philo Judaicus, Philo Alexandrinus, nothing. Never mentioned Paul and never mentioned any epistle of Paul. I'm going to tell you something else, guys. You can take this to the bank. In the entire book of Acts, not one of Paul's epistles is mentioned. Oh, this is going to go way deeper. Yeah, this is just the intro. I haven't even started my presentation, guys. This is just the intro. So it's very telling that the very first historical mention of Paul is with Marcion. Uh-oh. Some of my Archaix veterans who watch the Dark Scriptures playlist, you know what I'm talking about. Marcion, who the church fathers labeled a heretic, who labeled him a servant of the devil. Marcion was a student of the Gnosis, and he had a copy of the original sayings of Jesus. Guess what's not in that copy? Ain't no miracles, no virgin birth, none of that crap. None of the 3 wise men, gold, frankincense, and myrrh, followed the star of Bethlehem. None of that. Walking on water, turning 2 loaves of bread and 5 fish in a basket to feed 5,000 people. None of that. Raising Lazarus from the dead. None of that. Curing the blind. None of that. Just the pure red letter edition of the New Testament. The words of the Logos, which are timeless and can apply to any civilization at any time period. But here is where it gets really interesting. Really interesting. So you're going to have a lot of Christians that try to tell you that, oh, Paul's letters are dated to like 60-something, 70-something, or 80 AD. That's in-textual information that only Christians rely on. Actual historians know that the letters didn't appear till much later. Although the texts themselves try to date themselves earlier, but it's all given up because of the anachronisms. Things that are placed in the writings that do not belong to that time period. Yeah, guys, Jason didn't just wake up and start hating on Christianity. Yeah, I was a Christian for 40 years. You already know it. If you've watched my Dark Scriptures playlist, you know it took a lot to get to finally break free of that toxic paradigm and to understand that the kingdom of God is within you. And when Jesus specifically said, when they came to arrest him, when he was said, well, why won't your armies come and defend you? Why won't the angels of heaven come and defend you? And all, he just told him, he says, my kingdom is not of this world. That's all he had to say. If you truly process that, you will understand that everything Jesus ever said was to be taken into a spiritual context. And the poison is when men carnalize the story into something historical for which it never belonged. And then the ones who tried to carnalize it and then pass it off onto another people literally interpose themselves as superior. Always remember, if you're a Christian, then you need to put the Jew first, the Gentile second. Yeah, the racial superiority doctrine of the Jews is in the New Testament. And if you're going to carnalize the Christ into something it never was, into a historical context, then you need to start going to a synagogue and giving them all of your money, because that's what it's all about. So here's where it gets interesting. Paul's writings are mentioned later by the three apostolic fathers. Oh man, do Christians rely on the three apostolic fathers. These are the three first church fathers. They're called the apostolic fathers. You got Clement of the city of Rome. You've got Polycarp and Ignatius. Polycarp, I believe, was from Smyrna. Then you have Ignatius, who we're going to have some problems with. Now, later on, you also have Athenagoras. Why am I mentioning these four men? Because they all do. They all of a sudden, they appear on the scene. Not one of these men knew Jesus. Not one of these men were alive in 33 AD when Jesus was allegedly crucified. But they all popped up later and seemingly all correspond with each other like magic. And they all have a common denominator. And that's all of a sudden, they all know Paul. But we have a problem with this. Now, scholars believe that Paul was a student of Gnosis, and that his epistles were altered for use in the early Christian scriptures as the church rose to power. And it's easy to show why scholars believe this. So as the church doctored the epistles, they included statements toward the end of chapters or the beginning of chapters because it's hard to alter the text. Many Christian writers justified this because it strengthened the faith. But they also justified that they weren't really altering the word of God. How do you reconcile that? Well, I'm going to tell you how. Because the threats in the scriptures were that you do not remove one jot or one tittle, or you do not add to these texts. So they justified it that they kept the original body of the text and they would put their interpolations at the beginning or at the end. So just in case an angel might appear and smite them for altering a religious text, the actual religious text is still there. They just added the beginning and the beginning. And scholars have identified many of these interpolations because they do appear at the beginning and at the end of portions of writings. And this is what I showed in my Dark Scriptures playlist, what they did with Moses. All these Old Testament books didn't have any knowledge whatsoever of Adam and Eve, the Tower of Babel, never mentioned anything about Moses. And all of a sudden later copies showed up. Is this not written in the book of Moses? But that's all it is. It's like they had a stamp that it said in Hebrew, is this not written in the book of Moses? Stamp, 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 bam. Look, now We just made it look like all these ancient Israelite prophets actually knew Moses when it wasn't. It was invented in the 5th century BC based off older template of Sargon of Akkad. But that's nothing. We'll get to that later. Just like the cult of the crucified God, there are so many Jesus figures in ancient times. It boggles the mind that people don't know this. It even boggles the mind that I've heard defenses talking about, well, that's just the devil. The devil created all these myths and legends to prepare for the coming of Jesus so that we would be confused. He's the author of confusion. Man, it's amazing what I used to believe. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to admit that I have fallen for these church tactics. So this, like I said, this is still my intro. My presentation is going to go. You're going to hear all new material today. One interpolation that's really interesting is at the end of Corinthians, 1 Corinthians chapter 15. At the very end, it says that 500 people watched Christ ascend into heaven. But biblical scholars, not just any scholars, biblical scholars say that's interpolated text. It's an interpolated text. That right there was never cited by anybody before. So all of a sudden, they think somebody added that to the end of the text. But a perfect example of an interpolation by later Christian translators appeared in the writings of none other than Tacitus. Oh yeah, Christians love to cite Tacitus. Oh, Jason, you're wrong. In the 1st century, a Roman historian named Tacitus, he mentioned Christians and Pontius Pilate and that Jesus was put to death. That's not true. I'm going to show you why it's not true. So Tacitus was a Roman historian, and he wrote a book called Annals. In book 15, chapter 44, we have this in the modern copies of Tacitus. This is what it reads. They had their denomination from Chrestus, who in the reign of Tiberius was put to death as a criminal by the procurator Pontius Pilate. Oh man, has Pontius Pilate been drugged through the mud in so many forged texts? Wes Huff knows what I'm talking about. So how do we know? How do we know this was added later by Christian copyists? How can we say definitively, Jason, it's just a theory, it's a good theory, you may be right. Those scholars could be just, being hypercritical. It was called higher criticism. Jason, how do you might be stretching it. No. We do not have an original copy of Tacitus' writings. The only copies that we have went through the hands of Christian monks and copyists of the Roman Catholic Church. But that's not the evidence. The falsity in the text is found when we consider that Clement of Alexandria, Clement of Rome, studied all the known texts in his day, even quoting Tacitus. In his fervor to cite all the sources that refer to Jesus. By this method, scholars have found innumerous forged passages in the translations of older texts by Christian copyists. Let me repeat that. Clement of Alexandria and later Rome. Clement literally went through the writings of Tacitus to try to find any evidence of Jesus. He even cited Tacitus, but he never cited that passage, and he would have never ignored it. So, in the day of Clement, that passage was not yet in the writings of Tacitus, or he would have cited it. Guys, I have a whole list of interpolations like this where the church got busted lying. Absolutely. Scholars can go by the writings of Athanasius. They can go by the writings of, Athenagoras. They can go by the writings of Jerome. They can go through everything Eusebius the liar. Eusebius is called the liar. Eusebius the liar said. We can go through all of Augustine. And we can see that they religiously quoted every single known author they could, just trying to find scraps of evidence to put the Jesus story together. And then lo and behold, all of a sudden, passages appear in Josephus that are not in the older Josephus's. Passages appear in Tacitus that are not in the older copies of Tacitus. This is the method by which scholars can see that things have been interpolated. The church has a terrible history of forging records. Ask anybody who knows anything about forged writings in the historical record. Ask them about the donation of Constantine. Don't get me started on the Council of Nicaea. That's a whole different video. So, yeah, Clement not once cited this passage, and he would never have missed it. Further, Eusebius had missed this passage as well, and he cited Tacitus. He would have never not cited this passage. That's why biblical scholars and secular historians all know. Can't count that as evidence. It's definitely a forgery. Why so many forgeries? Why is the Christian religion with an entire anthology of dismissed text? Why? It's crazy. So the only thing that makes a Christian document authoritative today is the fact that they've had 19 centuries to cover their tracks, and out of thousands of writings that have been dismissed, a few made it to the modern time to where they can still have a little standing. Since when is that a litmus test? Since when the majority has been found to be contaminated, then the residuum should be contaminated as well? With Christianity, it's just the opposite. It's amazing what we convince ourselves is true. So one of the first church fathers, one who actually aided in the development of early Christianity and the authority of the Church of Rome, was Irenaeus. I don't know how to pronounce it, nor do I care. But this man wrote, this is a direct quote right here. This man wrote, "The Lord did not die on a cross, and that those who claim that he did do him great disservice. They rob him from the honor of teaching in his old age." I'm sorry, but Polycarp, Clement, and Ignatius are the three Christian apostolic fathers. And already we found one lying. And now we find one telling the truth. But it's not the Christian version that we know today. So now we have practicing exclusions. Now we have cherry picking. Irenaeus, one of the three authoritative Christian apostolic fathers, literally wrote that Jesus never died on a cross and that he lived to an old age. Just can't make this shit up. Hey, you know what? Gone, man. All you got to do is mention Marty's name. You're gone. You're gone. I'm done with that shill. All you have to do is one time allude to my criminal history when we're doing some type of intellectual joust, and it shows me your hand. I know exactly the architecture of your personality. And there is no time that can elapse that you can sit here and try to act like you have changed and now you want to be taken seriously. No. Gnostic Academy is a joke to me. and his channel will always suck, and I don't care. He can put out videos about Jason of Archaix till Jesus comes back. I don't care. Yeah. He has no standing in the community and will continue to be exactly where he is in life. Nowhere. I don't care. I don't care. Yeah. Moderators, I'm not going to have that guy mentioned in my chat anymore. Yeah. Let him go by the wayside. If his work has any merit, then the people will see it. He doesn't need me. He doesn't need me to get attention. So Irenaeus, one of the three church apostolic fathers, right there on the spot, tells you Jesus wasn't crucified. He lived to an old age. But you don't hear them talking about that on the pulpit, do you? No, you don't. Why? Because there are scriptures in the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, that came into existence that completely basically say that you cannot deny the crucifixion of Christ or this, and this. Yeah. So why is he an apostolic father? Because they're desperate for anything that can give any type of historical credence to what was nothing but a spiritual story. That's why. The oldest reference to Jesus performing miracles isn't even in the apostolic fathers. Process that. Process that, guys. The earliest reference to Jesus performing miracles is not in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, because Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John did not come into existence until about 170 to 180 AD, 150 years after the events they allegedly depict. That's a long time. The oldest reference to Jesus performing miracles is in the Epistle of Barnabas. The Epistle of Barnabas, a total crap forged text is what it is, about 130 AD. Yeah. So Jesus' statement, my kingdom is not of this world, it's the key to understanding the whole teaching. The teachings of Jesus are just spiritual. Christianity in its purest form is spiritual. Trying to place the story into a historical context, it forces copyists, it forces them to forge text, introduce deceptive colophons and interpolated passages that are not in the originals. This is what they had to do. This is what they've done. It's why it's so easy to disprove it all. I mean, it doesn't even take a lot. So, as I've shown in my Chronicon and videos, even the church fathers admit, I'm not making this up. I showed you guys. The church fathers themselves admit the Christian religion predates Jesus. They say what is known as of the Christian religion is more ancient than Christianity and goes back to the earliest times. Yeah. So who all of a sudden fitted it, took a Greek stage play and turned it into a historical narrative, and then they fit it on a year. It just happened to appear on AD 33. Come on, guys. Come on. Yeah, man. So the first century, let me check my chat before I go start showing. I got to show you guys a lot of stuff. My presentation is now beginning. That's just my intro. My intro took 52 minutes. Oh, yeah. I'm going to piss people off with this one. Yeah, man. It's crazy, guys. It's crazy when you break all these texts down. Jesus is such a beautiful story. The teachings are beautiful. And the oversoul doesn't require any of it to be actual historical. It's crazy. Yeah, man. No religion in the history of the world ever started with an entire library of forged writings. Oh my God. Process that. All right. Let's see here. Yeah, and all these arguments about there's no J until the 16th, 17th century, and his name wasn't Jesus. None of that shit obtains. Who cares? I go straight to the the first century. All that other stuff, tangential arguments. You'll never prove. You'll never prove the existence of Jesus through anything after the second century. Why? All that stuff's way too far back. You got to stick with the first century. The first century is where all the deception happened. Second century was already a lie, and they were just building onto it. That's crazy. Let's see. All right. Yeah, I see a lot of you guys have been asking me to address the drone shit. I'm just going to tell you now, man. I've been reading as my dad's driving, and then I'll take my turns to drive. And when I'm driving, I can't really do anything unless I'm doing a van vlog. I haven't had time to even look at it. I really don't even know what's going on. I see YouTube videos pop up about the drones and all that. I really don't care. Yeah, it's the whole response to Billy Carson, a dude I detest. I can't stand the dude, but because my heart was telling me something bigger is going on here. There's no way. There's just no way anyone is going to think that winning a debate with Billy Carson is victory. I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. I mean, we all know. Come on, man. We all know he's just a grifter. He's just a grifter with a good mouthpiece. He's not a researcher, but he's really good at watching 10 documentaries and videos and then putting his own spin on things and rehashing it like he's a Harvard grad. He's real good at that. Come on. I was raised with people off the streets, man. You guys know my history. I'm not. That shit doesn't even offend me, man. More power to you. Do what you got to do. But I've been on Billy's ass for over 2 years. Over 2 years, the most vocal out of anybody out there. Putting out these little comedy videos about his material, putting out calling him out publicly for debates and people he's associated with and all that. And not one of these. This is what really showed me that, damn, this Christian Reich is very well organized. It's a Reich. It is very well organized. Yeah, man. You want to debate with a shill. You didn't win a debate with anybody qualified. And 40 channels just unleashed all within 72 hours and turned it into something that it really wasn't. Wow. That's highly organized. That's some highly organized bully shit. And yeah, man. But that's Christianity to me. I'm not impressed with my Christian brothers and sisters, man. They're not they're gone. They're lost. They're lost. Christianity is now another form of dungeon programming. That's all it is. It's crazy. It's crazy. So, all right. Let's see here. Yeah, I haven't followed the drones, so I can't say nothing about it. Can't really say nothing about it. But what I will do is share my screen because we're about to get into that Phoenix knowledge. Phoenix in the New Testament. Jason, what are you talking about? How are you going to turn a Christian video into a Phoenix presentation? Well, I'm not. This is all about first century Christianity. You just didn't know that. All right, so share screen. Share my screen. Presentation is just now beginning. We're going to go through it quick. I'm not gonna draw this out. All right. Should be sharing my screen now. Just to make sure you guys are seeing the same thing I am. All right. Look on my phone real quick, make sure you guys are seeing the exact same thing I am, so I don't look like an idiot. Right. Go to my lives. There it is. All right. Let's do it. So, why are you not opening? This is weird. Okay, I shouldn't be in premium. I should be right there. How hard is it to access my own channel? There it is. All right, cool. Y'all are seeing the same thing. Awesome. That's all I needed to see. So, Arvan den Broek, the myth of the Phoenix, according to classical and early Christian traditions. What did he say? Christian traditions. The reason I'm introducing this is the beginning of my presentation. The reason this starts this way is because in the 1st century AD, Jesus' 12 disciples, this whole story that we've come to be known as the gospel did not exist. But the knowledge of the Phoenix was everywhere. And this is a key to understanding how some of these forgeries came into existence. In the 1st century AD, the Phoenix is mentioned 21 times by 10 authors. That's a lot. This is the 1st century AD. The Phoenix is mentioned 21 times by 10 authors. Those 10 authors are right there on the bottom of the screen. Those 10 authors from Ovid, Cornelius Valerianus, Pliny, Lucan, Martial, Pompilius Mela, Seneca, Statius, Chaeremon, and Pliny. Pliny the Elder and Pliny the Younger. Right there, you have 10 1st century authors that wrote about the Phoenix and mentioned it multiple times. 21 times total between those 10 authors. Not one of these 10 authors knew anything about a virgin-born Jesus, wise men, John the Baptist, a star appearing, and a birth of Jesus. They knew nothing about Jesus' ministry for 3.5 years. They knew nothing about him having 12 disciples. This controversy with the Jews, the Sanhedrin, the Sadducees, and the Pharisees knew nothing about it. They knew nothing about the eclipse and the sun darkening that occurred in 33 AD. Nothing about it. And some of these men would have never omitted an eclipse or a sun darkening or earthquake because it's what they wrote about. Nothing. None of these men knew the gospel story had happened in their lives in the 1st century AD. Not one of them. And yet, every single one of them knew about the Phoenix, mentioned it multiple times. So Tacitus 2 notes that it was generally thought that the Phoenix he said appeared in AD 34 was a false one. It had not come from Arabia and had not done any of the things that ancient tradition said it should have done. Again, this is evidence of forgery. According to Pliny, no one took this Phoenix seriously, probably because it would be considered that any Phoenix that allowed itself to be captured could not be a real one. Remember, they had already thought, by this time in history, they already thought Phoenix was a bird. They didn't know what they were talking about, as I show on my channel. So Tacitus 2 notes that it was generally thought that the Phoenix he said appeared in AD 34, but it was a false one. It had not come from Arabia. It had not done any of the things that ancient tradition said it should have done. What is the Phoenix supposed to do? It darkens the sun. It begins a new age and destroys a previous epoch. That's what it does. But it didn't happen. Remember, Tacitus' writings were forged. We have already referred to the report of Tacitus that the Phoenix was supposed to have appeared under Sethos I, Amasis, and Ptolemy III, Euergetes. This passage begins by saying that the phoenix appeared in Egypt during the consulate of B. Fabius and L. Vitellius, for example, in AD 34, and that this had led to heated discussions among Greek and Egyptian scholars. Many held the opinion that this phoenix was not a true one. The reason is because somebody is contaminating the text and trying to force Tacitus to say something he didn't say in order to show that the phoenix appeared about AD 34. Because the sun darkening and earthquakes that Phoenix always brings needed to happen about that time for this Christian. But the historians of the day, the Greeks and the Egyptian scholars, basically said, you're full of shit. This did not happen. In the same book, the name Phoenix has not yet been completely explained. Of the various meanings the word can have in Greek, the following are relevant: purple, Phoenician, and date palm. Date palm. Whoa, that's kind of weird. And that's where we're going with this video. We're going with the weird. So the historian Horapollo stated later that among the Egyptians, the palm was a symbol of the year because it gave forth 12 branches in a year, one in each month. You know what also Horapollo said? I have it in my published book, When the Sun Darkens, my very first book about the Phoenix phenomenon. Horapollo said that a man who returns from a long journey was in those days called a phoenix. From ancient times, the palm has been seen as a symbol of victory, and the phoenix shown perched on it is not. As Ovid and Lactantius will have it, a bird preparing for its death, but rather a symbol of eternal life in the heavenly paradise where the redeemed have received the palm of victory. I'm going to have to repeat that for you guys. This was written, this was a belief in the first century before the gospel story was even created. From ancient times, the palm had been seen as a symbol of victory, and the phoenix shown perched on it is not, as Ovid and Lactantius will have it, a bird preparing for its death, but rather a symbol of eternal life in the heavenly paradise where the redeemed have received the palm of victory. Oh, we're going somewhere with this. You might want to go watch my Occultus Mysterium, my Codex Judaica video, where the phoenix is hidden in all these alchemical deals. And then every time in those pictures, because those pictures tell a story, but every time in those pictures you see the phoenix, the world suffers the material interpretation. Sun darkening, earthquakes, systemic reset. But believers, the immortals in the construct, receive the spiritual interpretation. Phoenix is the symbol for the redeemed. It's the symbol for eternal life in a heavenly paradise. Remember, I showed you guys a lot of evidence that the phoenix is associated to the whole Adam and Eve story. We'll get to that. Both the Bennu and the phoenix functioned as symbols of the events and conditions belonging to the beginning of the world. Remember, the Bennu and the phoenix are the same thing. In ancient Egypt, in Lower Egypt, at On, the city of Anu, later called Heliopolis by the Greeks, there was a mansion of the Phoenix that housed a pyramidion that was designed. It was basically a copy of a replica of what the ancient Egyptians believed was once on top of the Great Pyramid, which is nothing but a flat top now. But the Benben stone was emblematic of the pyramid, and it was housed in the mansion of the Phoenix, which venerated the Bennu, or the Egyptian version of the phoenix bird. Talking about cycles of world history, but having a secondary meaning about eternal life. And it was focused on the paradise at the beginning of the world, the time of prior to Zeptepi. So this was the case under Constans I in 337 to 350 AD, and Constantius II, 337 to 361 AD, who ruled in the West and East respectively. The Phoenix was shown standing on a pyramid-shaped group of rocks. Later, in the second half of the 5th century, an unusually talented mosaicist in Daphne. What I tell you guys in my Phoenix research, in my published books, and on my Phoenix Phenomenon playlist, Daphne is a play on words for the Phoenix, Daphne. Near Antioch, this is Syria, showed the Phoenix in the same way, standing on a pile of rocks arranged in the form of the pyramid. Even the United States, Great Seal of the United States until the year 1902, which was a Phoenix year on the 138-year periodicity of the Phoenix phenomenon. In 1902, the United States government quietly changed the Great Seal Phoenix to a bald eagle. They did that. What's on the other side of the Great Seal? It's the Great Pyramid of Egypt with the all-seeing eye, the pole star. So these concepts are ancient, and we still carry them on today. The appearance of a new ruler on the scene and the beginning of a new era were seen as a return of the Golden Age, the return of Eden, the fortunate state of things that had prevailed at the beginning of the great year. This is clearly shown by the symbolism of the Phoenix on a number of coins of Roman emperors. Now, in prior presentations, I've told you guys about numismatics. Numismatics is a very good way of determining what was real and what is imagined about different centuries in the past. And when it comes to Christianity, numismatics exposes Christianity as non-existent in the 1st century AD. It's just not there. In the 2nd century AD, I think there's 2 or 3 coins, but it's toward the later part of the 2nd century AD. And they're not proof that Jesus was here. It's just proof that the belief was taking root. When it comes to numismatics, the Phoenix is everywhere in Greco-Roman coins. That should tell you something. Numismatics will always accurately show what a people believe during a certain time period. So the palm tree is featured in Greek and Roman mythology as part of their ceremony and lore. Greek mythology links the date palm to the immortal phoenix. The phoenix would build its nest at the top of the date palm, where the fire of rebirth would eventually rise and burn. From this fire, the phoenix is reborn. This is like it's like a childish version of the legend of the Phoenix. A lot of people new to my channel do not understand all these things I'm talking about of the Phoenix. My Archaix veterans do, because you've seen the 100 and something videos I've done on the Phoenix and what it really meant in the ancient world. But we'll get to that. It's truly a very, very ancient concept. It is not by coincidence that almost every time a tree is depicted on Babylonian, Sumerian, Assyrian, Near Eastern artwork, it's always a date palm. Look at them. Look at them. It's not me making it up. There's your date palms. There's an illustration chopping down date palms. I'll explain that in a minute. I'm going to tell you what they're used for. Here's more date palms. So the date palm tree is known as the tree of life. The Prophet Muhammad even said, there is among the trees one which is blessed. It is the date palm, for it was created from the earth, left over from the creation of Adam. The date palm, the reason I'm quoting Muhammad here of Islam is because he's merely reinforcing what we already see in the Sumerian, Assyrian, and Babylonian reliefs. They had a very special place set aside for the date palm compared to all other trees, which is really unusual because the wood of the date palm cannot be used as a building material. It can't. The date palm is not even a tree. It looks like a tree. It's hard like a tree. It's not truly a tree plant. Ancient Egypt. The date palm was sacred to Thoth, messenger of the gods, Hermes, architect. Told you guys a lot about Thoth, the Enoch of ancient Egypt, the Enki of ancient Egypt. That's Thoth. This is the date palm. The scientific name for the date palm, I'm going to try, it's called Phoenix dactylifera. You just can't make this up. It's called a phoenix palm. And I'm going to show you that. In the encyclopedias, it's literally called the phoenix palm. Palm trees were painted on the inside of tombs. What was the palm tree emblematic of? Eternal life, tree of life, resurrection. What is it linked to? The phoenix, same thing. Phoenix identifies immortals. It's all here, guys. Here's another one. Here's another one. Oh, he's holding the handbag and he's got the pine cone too. All right. Oh, we're not done. Let's check it out. So the palm, also called phoenix, refers to several species of palm trees. Rebellini palm, a dwarf-type palm tree that reaches 6 to 12 feet. Phoenix sylvestris, the silver date palm, the Indian date, sugar date palm, or wild date palm, native to southern Pakistan, most of India, Nepal, Bhutan, Myanmar, and Bangladesh. And then Phoenix dactylifera, date palm, cultivated for its edible sweet fruits called dates. Isn't that weird? Date is both a fruit you eat and also the coordinates in sequential time. Date. We'll get to that too. The date palm, Phoenix dactylifera, has a long history in Egypt and other parts of North Africa and the Middle East. These palms are not only valued for their fruit, but also have cultural and historical significance. In ancient Egypt, the date palm was associated with the calendar and timekeeping. The tree's growth cycle, particularly its flowering and fruiting periods, was used to mark the passage of time and seasons. The date palm's importance extended beyond agriculture, influencing various aspects of daily life and religious practices. For instance, the tree was often depicted in ancient Egyptian art and was considered a symbol of fertility and prosperity. The fruit of the date palm holds historical significance and is recognized as both an energy staple and dessert. These fruits are considered the oldest harvested fruit in recorded history. Back to the beginning, just like Phoenix, back in the beginning, the Adam and Eve, the Eden period. So in the pre-dynastic Egyptian period, we have date palms found in tombs. They're always associated to the dead nobles and dead pharaohs, the elite of ancient Egypt. So this lends to their symbol as being they symbolize the tree of life, of resurrection from the dead, immortalhood. This is why they were so important and put in these tombs. The dates were also used for making wine and beer. So here's a Egyptian Book of the Dead reads, "In a clean place shall I sit on the ground, beneath the foliage of the date palm of the goddess Hathor." Who's the goddess Hathor? She's the golden calf the Israelites worshipped, that the demon out of the burning bush could not stand, and sent Moses to harass them about it. Well, he didn't just harass them, he burned them alive, buried them alive, impaled them, sold their children off of slavery. Moses did all that. So dynastic period. During the dynastic period, the first 5 dynasties, they were used as mortuary offerings found in Saqqara. Tombs were packed with palm leaves. A small date palm tree was found in a Saqqara tomb dating back to the 1st and 2nd dynasty. That's crazy. That's just crazy. I'm just showing that by way of example that this belief system in the date palm, the phoenix palm, was ancient, and that it had everything to do with resurrecting, being able to live forever. So the dates on the date palms, they had great utilitarian value. This is another reason why they were associated with being the tree of life. The palm tree is very hard to kill. It's going to provide dates all the time. Hundreds of thousands of pounds of dates. You're going to be able to eat them. They're going to keep you alive. And the trunk, the palm trunks were used for roofing and the leaves for basket making. They made their shoes and sandals. So according to Wilkinson, the historian Wilkinson, in 1854, he had identified 360 products that the ancients built, made, cooked, whatever, using all the ingredients of the date palm, from the trunk, the fronds, to the dates themselves. 360 different products could be made. Yeah, that's amazing. That's a tree of life. So among these products is a special type of wine known as Archaix. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that or not, which is still manufactured in rural areas of Egypt. Date palm wine was mentioned on 2 ostraca of the 19th dynasty found in the Cairo Museum. Pliny was cited that date palm wine was made throughout all the countries of the East, which probably was meant to include Egypt. Yeah. Remember the 3rd seal? Hell yeah. Remember the scales on the 3rd seal? I told you one of them is a carnal interpretation and one of them is a spiritual interpretation. The spiritual interpretation was, see that thou do not hurt the oil and the wine. That's right. A great economic boom is coming, but it's going to be a spiritual drought. It's going to be a spiritual famine while it's going to be a material bounty, a Sodom and Gomorrah type society. But the elect are going to make it through it just fine. See that thou do not hurt the oil and the wine. So medicinal uses of date palm in ancient Egypt. I'm not going to read all these. I just want to show you that, look, all these different medicines were made, which only reinforces the concept that the phoenix palm was exactly what they said it was, the tree of life. So let's move on. So this is a picture of my actual, this is just one of my encyclopedia sets. This one right here is from 1902. 1902, a phoenix year. And this is the page right here. I'm going to show you exactly what it says. 1902, Encyclopedia Britannica. I looked up the phoenix palm. I'm going to read this whole section. That the Bennu is the prototype of the phoenix is further confirmed by the fact that the former word in Egyptian also means palm tree, just as the latter does in Greek. How far the Egyptian priest translated the symbolism of the Bennu into a legend, it would be vain to conjecture. That the common people did so is only what we should expect. And it is to be observed that the monuments have not yet shown any trace of the element in the classical legend, which makes the phoenix a prodigy instead of a symbol. Its actual appearance at long intervals. The very various periods named make it probable that the periodical return of the phoenix belongs only to vulgar legend, materializing what the priests knew to be symbolic. This is all I'm telling you that Christianity is. It is a real religion that dates from ancient times. It is entirely spiritual. And it was only known in the symbolic. Now somebody's gone. Now somebody's come up and they had to use a whole bunch of made up bullshit forged text in order to pass off this great lie that all this actually happened in history when it did not. I found this interesting too. This is in the 1902 edition of the Phoenix, same book. Many commentators still understand the word coal in Job 29:18, authorized version, sand of the phoenix. What? What? What does Phoenix do in 1902? It rains sand, hundreds of billions of tons of sand all over the red sand all over the world. Sometimes red dust, sometimes red mud, sometimes red rain. It all depends on the local conditions. But yeah, that's crazy. Remember, there are some traditions that the phoenix rains cinnamon. There's been some researchers that say that phoenix is known for depositing cinnabar all over the world when it appears. Yeah, it's all the same thing. It's red. It's red material. Thank you, Mr. C, for the search engine. Appreciate that. We're moving right on up. Let me see. Let me look at my little chat real quick before we continue. So, making good time. 1,600 people in the chat. Yeah, guys, I'm about to show you some stuff. I'm gonna show you some stuff, some amazing stuff. Let's get back to it. This is all going somewhere. You're gonna have I promise you, you're gonna have your aha moments. Okay, so what we got here? Ancient religious traditions. Okay, ancient Egyptians used date palm leaves as an emblem of longevity. The excavations revealed a kneeling man holding in his hands a bunch of palm leaves for longevity. Date palm was an emblem of the greatest god, Amun-Ra. Hathor, the goddess of life, joy, music, dancing, and fertility, had the date palm as one of her emblems. At Dendera in Upper Egypt, a beautiful palm grove surrounded her famous sanctuary. Thoth, the god of science and time, they believed that he who separates time into months and years had also the date palm as one of his attributes. Whenever a pharaoh king celebrated the 30th jubilee of his reign, the so-called Hebsed ceremony, he held in his hands a bunch of palm midribs. It was believed that into these very midribs, the god that had carved the notches corresponding the number of years that were still allowed to the reign and life of the king. Date fruits were among the wages paid to the workmen at Deir el Medina temple. In the dynastic period, palm leaves were carried to the tombs as mortuary offerings. The mortuary bouquets made of date palm leaves were still used till the Greco-Roman period. Date palms in association with the dead means that they carry the promise of eternal life. Uncovering the myths and legends surrounding palm trees in ancient civilizations. Palm trees have long been a symbol of paradise and relaxation, with their swaying fronds and towering trunks evoking images of tropical beaches and exotic destinations. But beyond their aesthetic appeal, palm trees have also played a significant role in the myths and legends of ancient civilizations around the world. From the ancient Egyptians to the Greeks and Romans, palm trees have been revered and mythologized for their beauty, resilience, and symbolism. In ancient Egypt, the palm tree was a symbol of resurrection and eternal life. The ancient Egyptians believed that the palm tree represented the god of creation, Adam, who was said to have created himself out of a palm tree. The tree's ability to regenerate and thrive in harsh desert conditions made it a powerful symbol of rebirth and renewal. Palm trees were often planted in temple gardens and used in religious rituals, with their fronds symbolizing victory and triumph over death. In the Bible, palm trees are mentioned numerous times as symbols of righteousness, prosperity, and beauty. The book of Psalms describes the righteous like a palm tree flourishing in the house of the Lord. Remember the Christian mysteries. To he who overcometh, I will make you a pillar in the temple of my God. A pillar is no different than a trunk. In ancient times, many pillars were trunks, the trunks of trees. And in the book of Revelation describes the victorious saints in heaven as holding palm branches in their hands. Well, that's Revelation 9 somewhere. Going right through it. Let me see if my syllabus is right. All right. Yeah, man, we're getting right through it. You guys are going to have your aha moments. So it was primarily a symbol indicative of a reality beyond that of the individual, but including him and forming the true basis of his existence. We're talking about the phoenix now. The phoenix was a symbol. This is in the 1st century AD. This is the belief structure. An important factor in the present investigation is formed by the discovery that the phoenix had a symbolic meaning in the oldest and previously unexplained text in which the bird is mentioned by Hesiod. So we're not talking about a phenomenon like the sun darkening, earthquake, total systemic reset, and all that, there was a spiritual meaning to the coming of the Phoenix as well. It is remarkable to note that certain texts were mentioned in earlier times and then evidently forgotten by later scholars. Concerning the Phoenix, that's exactly what we're going to find. When a new faith appears and steals the iconography, symbols, and meanings of previous belief systems and then passes them off as their own, that's exactly what happens. Various representations of the Phoenix have been discovered. Since almost every representation of the Phoenix has a specific symbolic meaning, its occurrences in art are of great importance. Remember, Occultus Mysterium, the Codex Judaica on the Phoenix. You need to watch that video with this new understanding that the Phoenix has dual meaning. In the materium, Phoenix is devastating. In the spiritual, Phoenix is liberating for those immortals in the construct that witness it. In the classical world, the Phoenix became a symbol of the rebirth of the soul, and later, among the Christians, of the resurrection of the flesh. In most cases, the discussion or mention of the Phoenix is concerned not with the animal world, but with the human world. And it can only be concluded that the Phoenix fulfilled an important function with respect to the meaning of human existence. Yeah, man, we're getting deeper. We are getting deeper. Man, did I go through all those right there? I sure did. I sure did. All right, before we continue on, let me check my chat. We're halfway done with this study. Check my chat here. Okay. Awesome. All good. Signal clear. Signal strong today. Yeah, man. So, what have we learned so far? The date palm is interchangeable in Egypt and in Greece. Not just Egypt, but Greece also, completely interchangeable. The Phoenix palm, the date palm, which is also called the Phoenix palm, and the Phoenix itself, a total bridging of the concepts. Both the date palm and the Phoenix are connected to the beginning, to Eden, to the Adam and Eve story, to the tree of life. Anyone who is all Archaix veterans know we're talking about a specific year, 3895 BC. And I've shown multiple data sets as to how we know that's year one of the Anno Mundi calendar. We know that's year one of the pre-flood world's 1,656 years, which in Genesis is covered by 10 patriarchs. 1656 is divisible by 138. We know this. We've already seen all the information and all the data. So the date palm is the tree of life. The Phoenix was something else. So they are symbolic of eternal life, victory over death, purification by fire, and resurrection. Both the date palm and the Phoenix are calendar symbols, independently on their own. The date palm, the Phoenix palm, and the Phoenix are both connected intrinsically with the counting of time. Remember, Phoenix is the keeper of the calendar. You just can't make this stuff up. Let's show my screen again. Let me show my screen because I know some of you remember this, but I know there's a lot of you that don't. Never seen this before. This was in Occultus Mysterium. This was in my Codex Judaica text. Let me share my screen again. They got a lot of hidden information in those alchemical woodcuts and engravings and all that stuff. All right, I'm sharing. There it is. There it is. There's the Phoenix. The Phoenix is basically an overlay of the zodiacal construct. The zodiac itself is a construct. It is specifically given to you. So you'll process information in the luminaries the way they want you to process them. But there's one real unusual anomaly here. Phoenix is looking backward and forward in the past and in the future. I've already shown this 90-degree angle right here. This is unusual. This is the only lines that come off that don't fit the rest of the picture. They draw your attention. This right angle right here that I'm showing with my cursor. This is the only thing on the whole chart that doesn't fit true to form. Everything else is pretty much according to pattern. This is not. There's not one on this side. So it begs the question: what this line is touching the Phoenix, but it's also touching this central axis. But the line touches the axis on a latitudinal line right here. And it's the only latitudinal line on the entire deal that goes to the past to the number 138. It's the only one that goes to the number 138. And it follows to the future to the number 138. Right there between Pisces and the water bearer. The Phoenix. This is just one of many I showed in there. 1902 is 138 years before 2040, the return of the Phoenix. That's right. Absolutely correct. Okay, so I'm still sharing the screen, so I'm going to keep on going. All right. So let's look at this. What we got here. Okay, by the majority of Christian authorities, Jesus was crucified in 33 Common Era, 33 AD. The earliest known documents belonging to Christianity make no mention of the sun darkening or earthquake. However, in 180 AD, the four gospel texts suddenly appeared: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Prior to the appearance of these accounts, no church fathers left any records of the sun darkening and this massive earthquake in the crucifixion. The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 27:45 reads, "Now from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land unto the 9th hour." Suddenly, this is reiterated in the Gospel of Nicodemus. In the Gospel of Nicodemus, we read, "A terrible darkness covered the whole land when the Christ was crucified." Sounds like a story. In fact, when the appearance of the church's official version of the events, the four Gospels, many Christian writers openly claimed that at the crucifixion of Jesus, the Phoenix made an appearance. One of the most widely known and easily proven forgeries from early Christianity was this Gospel of Nicodemus. Also, another text that also mentions the sun darkening is called Pilate's Report to Tiberius Caesar, a known Christian forgery. Even Christian scholars admit it. Pilate's Report to Tiberius Caesar, where we read, "The sun was altogether hidden, and the sky appeared dark while it was yet day. Wherefore I suppose your excellency is not unaware that in all the world they lighted their lamps from the 6th hour unto evening. And the moon, which was like blood, did not shine all night long, although it was at the full. So dreadful were the signs that men saw both in the heavens and on the earth, that Dionysius the Areopagite is reported to have said, either the author of nature is suffering or the universe is falling apart." All total bullshit. Dionysius neither wrote or said any such thing, nor was he the only early authority to have their observations stolen and words added to their accounts. Church officials destroyed all known copies of the earlier records to conceal their misdeeds. The Dionysius account was of a Phoenix event in the past, or it was just entirely contrived, either one. So the same was done by Eusebius 3 centuries after the alleged crucifixion event. He wrote that a pagan historian named Phlegon of Bithynia wrote a book called Olympiad, that the sun darkened and a terrible quake transpired that destroyed the city of Nicaea, or Nice. I think it's Nike, in Bithynia. But scholars have found absolutely no trace of Phlegon. No ancient writers mentioned him, cite him, nor are the books called Olympiads known to the multitudes of ancient authors who would have cited them. Either Phlegon was purely a church invention 300 years after the fact, or the Phoenix event preserved by Phlegon was real, authentic account, but from an earlier time period not corresponding to the 33 AD crucifixion timing. So the Olympiad text had to be destroyed, allowing Eusebius, a known forger and liar, to use the account with impunity. Eusebius has been caught lying many times. Clement, in the 2nd century AD, wrote that when Phoenix appeared, the priests then inspect the registers of dates and find that it has returned exactly as the 500th year was completed. 5 centuries is wrong. You already know, 552 years. But by the time of early Christianity, the knowledge of the Phoenix appeared every 552 years. It was lost. It was lost. But here we have the Apostolic Fathers. We have Clement in the 2nd century writing about the Phoenix. Gospel accounts came from its borrowed materials, the facts that were used to support the fiction. By adding the sun darkening and quake effect of the Phoenix to the story of Jesus' crucifixion, the church brilliantly provided itself an historical touch to an imagined event. But this only worked because it was contrived centuries after it was supposed to have occurred. 2 facts. No Christian documents antedating the Gospels mention the sun darkening or quake, and the church fathers' writings are extensive. None of the historians, naturalists, or chronographers of Jesus' day mentioned him or the crucifixion. No authentic records exist concerning the sun darkening or quake. Cassius Dio, Pliny the Elder, Seneca, Tacitus, even the Jewish writers Philo Judaicus and Flavius Josephus are silent on the crucifixion, darkening of the sun, and earthquake. Everybody in the world would have been writing about this stuff. So, we now have an amazing bridge between tree of life, resurrection, the promise of eternal life, the Phoenix. And we now, as I've showed you, I'm going to show you more, we now have evidence that the early church was very aware of the meaning of the Phoenix, and they stole that concept and tried to pigeonhole it into that time period to make it look like Jesus's crucifixion, which was in the narratives, have a darkening of the sun and an earthquake, meant the Phoenix was here, lending Jesus historical credibility. I'm going to show you something that should startle you alive. And if it's correct, then we're going to be able to see a lot more evidence that the church stole the Phoenix concept and applied it to Jesus. It was in the field. Remember, I'm a chronologist. This is what I do. I am the first person in the world to bring to your attention the Phoenix chronology, and then I supported it with massive amounts of data. 138-year timeline. It started in 4309 BC, 414 years before the Adam and Eve reset, which was 3895 BC. For those new to my channel, you're just going to have to bear with it. But my Archaix veterans will verify. They have seen the data sets. I'm not the one that dated these. 3895 was year one of the pre-flood world. It started the 138-year timeline. We're waiting on the next one, which is 2040. 33 AD was not on the Phoenix timeline. It's not. But as I show you guys all the time with cross-calendrical parallels, calendrical isometrics, and studying things in multiple dimensions of arithmetic, we can see when a major play happened in history. We can see it. We can see when paradigms collide. What am I always telling you? When independent systems come in contact, there's always an exchange of materials. There is always an enmeshing and creating interference patterns create new patterns. So this is amazing to find. I need to show you first, right here. This is my Chronicon. Many people, I've got many fact checkers. I don't care. Do all the fact checking you want. 33 AD is the year 3927 of the old world's calendar. That's it. 33 AD is the year 3927 Anno Mundi. And I have shown this in multiple different ways. I'm not worried about anybody trying to go into an old commentary that cites that all that erroneous, made up, fictitious Jewish calendar BS. I got a video on the Jewish calendar showing you how BS it is. It was just very recently developed. Very recently developed. The Annus Mundi calendar is very old. It's been used for a very long time. 33 AD is 3927 Annus Mundi. The early Christian church stole the concepts that belonged to the Phoenix and transposed them into their new religion. And you can see it in the field. Let me show you. The Phoenix timeline begins 4309 BC. 6,354 years later is when time itself collapses. I've got many videos on this. My Archaix veterans know what I'm talking about. It is the year 2046. It is when the Mayan long count is finished. It is when the seven trumpet judgments are unleashed. It is when a third of time is absolutely removed to keep them from the evil to come. It specifically says that if those days are not shortened, no flesh will be saved. So 2046, I've showed you engineer David Davidson's research on the Great Pyramid and how the geometrical timeline that he discovered this. He literally published that he doesn't understand why, but there's a geometrical astronomical calendar in the Great Pyramid, and it literally ends, its final year is 2045. Douglas Vogt of the Diehold Foundation, also 2046. You've seen my independent data sets on 2046, especially Nostradamus. Nostradamus, his date index decoded by Mario reading shows 2046. So this is all amazing. It's all very interesting, but it provides us a 6,354 year period from the keeper of the first appearance of Phoenix, the very first appearance of Phoenix, the keeper of the calendar, all the way to the year when the calendar itself will collapse and we'll have to get a whole new way of keeping time. It's 6,354 years. These are all independent data sets. They all stand alone by themselves. Merging together, they form this chart. 6,354 years in another dimension of arithmetic is 3,927. It's 3927. All you have to do, anybody can verify this, all you have to do is take 6,354 years and divide it by 1.618, the golden proportion number, the epic number in physics. And the result will be 3927.0. In another order of arithmetic, we find that 33 AD was 33 AD becomes in the field saturated exchange of information and all this data from the Phoenix, all these concepts of resurrection, concepts of the tree of life, eternal life, victory over death, all these get transposed into another system. And that system, the hallmark for that system is 33 AD, the number of Freemasonry. It's right here. 2046, what happens? According to the book of Revelation, everything gets reduced by a third. What is a third of a whole? It's 33%. So we have the day, the night, the sun, the moon, the stars, all reduced by a third. So a 24-hour day becomes 8 hours. 8 hours becomes 16 hours because 8 hours are removed. Now we have a 16-hour day. The year collapses from 365.24 to 243 days a year. That's going to change humans. It's going to change time, change our perception of reality, change everything. But it's all right here. 33 AD. This is the Phoenix timeline, 6,354. This is the timeline of the construct, and it turns around in another order of arithmetic. We find out in the year 3927. What is 3927? It's 3,927 days since the story of Adam and Eve, the tree of life, the serpent in the garden, the Genesis total systemic reset, year one of the pre-flood world. Pre-flood world was 1,656 years, divisible by 138. This is what we have. It's all in the field. What is this? What is all this in the field? They took this concept of the chief cornerstone. He is the gate. He is the way, the truth, and the life, and the light. Remember the Great Pyramid's original name? El Kahudi, the lights. It's missing a capstone. Why? Because he is the stone the builders rejected. It's all right here. Every bit of it's in the math. I am the door. Each stone is a redeemed soul. The empty sarcophagus in the king's chamber tells of one that defeated death, the kinsman redeemer. It's a story. It's an ancient faith, and it goes back way farther than the packaging Christianity has assumed to be true, called the gospel narrative. Gospel is actually the God spell. They've cast a spell on these people. The original story goes to ancient times. It's all in the field. It's all in the calendrics. We have it right here. 33 AD is when the switch was made over from the Phoenix, which was very real information, to the pseudo spiritual information, when they began to carnalize this concept. And here it is right here, 39:27 a.m. Anybody can check my math. My chronicon is 1,055 pages. If you think that 33 AD is actually 39:26 or 39:28, yeah. All you got to do is just write your stuff up, cite your sources. I will publish it on my channel, and then I will embarrass you. Believe me, a lot of people think they're qualified to be chronologists, and then they get embarrassed. Then they hate my guts later on because I embarrass them. I don't care. Just don't care. Let's see. All right, so, oh yeah, we still got some good stuff. Good stuff. Oh, we're not done. That chart. We are not done. Let's see here. All right. So let's see what we got going on here. All right. So palm branches were also one of the elements of the festival of Booth, Sukkot, which commemorated God's protection of the Israelites during their wilderness journey. Remember, I've told you in past presentations about the Phoenix phenomenon and how we are actually protected from it. Look at this. Psalm 17:8. Keep me as the apple of thine eye. Hide me in the shadow of your wings. Your wings? Psalms 36:7. How precious is your loving kindness, O God, and the children of men take refuge in the shadow of your wings. Okay. God's a bird. Psalms 57:1. Let's see. For the choir director, set to Al Tasheth. I don't even know what all that means. Be gracious. All right. For the soul takes refuge in you, and in the shadow of your wings I will take refuge until destruction passes by. What's going on here? Why? These are references to the phoenix. God is a phoenix, and yet when he brings destruction, what's happening? Under the shadow of his wings, what's going on? Malachi 4:2. But for you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in its wings, and you will go forth and skip about like calves from the stall. Again, a reference to God being associated to the sun, which is for the phoenix phenomenon, and his wings. Oh, here's something straight out of the gospel story. What happened here? Here it is right here. They praised him. Hosanna in the highest. In the Hebrew language, Hosanna is a prayer meaning save us. Why is this relevant? We have Old Testament versions of God being bird-like, bringing destruction on the world at the same time. His wings are covering and protecting his own. And in the New Testament, we have Jesus riding into Jerusalem on a donkey. And the people rush out there and throw down phoenix palms. All the phoenix palms are laid out. And they say, Hosanna in the highest. Which means save us. the whole concept of the phoenix palm and the phoenix itself is now being morphed into a new faith, Christianity. Don't take my word for it. I'm going to cite the Christians themselves. All right, so let's go ahead and look at some of these. I'll check my chat in just a second. Check some of these. You know what? I will dignify you with blowing that up so you can see it. And changing that horrible font. I do not like that font. That's better. All right. I know a bunch of you can see this. I know a bunch of you can see this. So Clement of Rome, first apostolic father, in his epistle to the Corinthians writes, oh man, let me show it. Let us consider the wonderful sign of the resurrection of the Lord Jesus Christ. For just as the phoenix is born from its own ashes, so too our Lord Jesus Christ, having been raised from the dead, shall raise us also. Clement of Rome, the very first Christian father, one of the three apostolic fathers who never met Jesus, wasn't even alive when it happened, but he, the very first father, has already identified the phoenix concept with Jesus. Tertullian, in his apologetic work, De Resurrection Carnal, on the resurrection of the flesh, he explicitly compares the phoenix's cyclical rebirth to Christ's resurrection, sees the mythical bird as a natural symbol of Christian resurrection theology. What? Told you guys I didn't make that up. All the Christian fathers had made the connection, and only later in Christianity was the phoenix totally removed. Origen of Alexandria discussed the phoenix in theological writings, interpreted the myth as a metaphorical representation of Christ's triumph over death. Lactantius, De Aphonis, the phoenix, explicitly connects the phoenix to Christ's resurrection. St. Ambrose, 339 to 397 AD, in his Treatise De Spiritu Sancto, on the Holy Spirit, St. Ambrose writes, the phoenix, which is said to be born from its own ashes, is a symbol of the resurrection of Christ, who rose from the dead on the third day. De Spiritu Sancto. Here's St. Augustine of Hippo. Man, lots of forged, lots of lies, lots of a bunch of anachronistic material, but we're going to go ahead and cite him right. In his City of God, St. Augustine writes, the phoenix, which is said to be born from its own ashes, is a symbol of the resurrection of Christ, who rose from the dead, and of the resurrection of the faithful, who shall rise from the dead. What? So you can see, even in another dimension of arithmetic, in the field, we see what the hijacking did. It impregnated the field right there at 33 AD. The Phoenix material was hijacked. Since that date, the Phoenix has been removed. What happened right after that date? The Dark Ages. What was the Dark Ages? The imposition of a new calendar, the Anno Domini calendar, year of our Lord calendar. What did they do? I have a video, it's very profound. Will my moderators please put the link to that video in there on the harrowing truth of the Anno Domini calendar, how the papacy hid the Phoenix. Totally different data sets. Some really good material by Alexander Del Mar in there, where he shows that the 552-year divisible by 138 Phoenix cycle was deliberately hidden by the church, and a new calendar was started to keep the people from understanding the Phoenix timeline. It's all there. Man, Jeff Stout, there's my buddy from Hawaii. He and I were raised together in Bedford, Texas. I see him every once in a while. I see him in the chat. What's up, Jeff? I'm sorry, man. I got real close to you in California, man. I'm not in California anymore. I'm on my way back to Texas. But I got close to you, but I'm gonna have to take another trip before I come out to Hawaii way. I appreciate it though. Jeff Stout and I in 3rd or 4th grade did a skit. My first attempt at public speaking. It went pretty good. We did a skit together. In 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, I became a knucklehead. By 9th grade, I was a runaway for 2 years. I used to hide from the police in Jeff Stout's house. Sure did. Anyway, let me move on. Yeah, guys, I bought so many books. Thank you for your donations. I really appreciate it. You really offset the costs. Because this is a long trip, and I've been on vacation, and I've been also working hard. I've released a lot of videos on this trip, and I'm not done. Still going to be 2 or 3 days before I get back home. And yeah, traveling with an 82-year-old, you can't drive for long periods of time. He's probably listening to me, cussing me out right now, but you just can't drive for long periods of time. So anyway, yeah, I appreciate those. And yeah, by all means, you can go back to any of those. I'm not going to do it in this video, but you can go back to any of those previous videos. You can help a brother out because them hotels and all these antique books and all this gas money, yeah, that shit adds up. I done spent a lot of money on this trip, but it's all good. It's worth it. All right, check it out, guys. Get back to where we're at here. I'm still sharing my screen, so I need to show you these right here. So I'm going to show you right here. This is like almost 1,000 years old. Old Orthodox apocalypse wall painting from medieval Osogovo Monastery, Republic of Macedonia. This is like Byzantine. This is Eastern Orthodox. I need to show you this. All right. I need to show you this because this is early church stuff. Look at this beautiful painting inside this monastery. What you're looking at are all the scenes. You're looking at all the scenes of the book of Revelation. You're looking at the letters of the 7 churches, the devil's chair. There's the devil seating at Pergamum right there. You're looking at the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, the 7 trumpets, God on his throne. There's the tetramorph. It's all here. The scenes of the book of Revelation are all on the periphery. Understand what I'm saying. They are on the terminus, the periphery of the artwork. But we need to look at what's going on the inside of this circle. On the inside of the circle, there's your Jesus figure. It's in the clouds of heaven. There's your 7 candlesticks, all in the book of Revelation. Here it is. Here's John the Revelator writing down everything he sees. And right next to John the Revelator, you can't miss it. You can't miss it, guys. You just can't miss it. That's the Phoenix. Oh, I'm not done. Not done. You're going to see it more. Just not done. I don't know about that one yet. Let's see. So you guys, I didn't pull the pictures, but you have to understand that Notre Dame de Paris was built from 1163 to 1345 AD. In the south rose window of the cathedral depicts a phoenix is surrounded by the symbols of the four evangelists. The phoenix is often interpreted as a symbol of Christ's resurrection. But there's something else, there's something deeper here. The four evangelists, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So we know that the symbols of the phoenix and the ancient phoenix timeline in history were basically hijacked by early Christianity. This was understood when they built this cathedral and put this painting in there. Then the Notre Dame de Paris Cathedral also continues this revelation. Now, how do you pronounce it? Was French? Chartres Cathedral, 1194 to 1220 AD. That's during the Waldenses, Crusades, and the Cathars. But the labyrinth of this cathedral features a phoenix at its center, which is often seen as a symbol of Christ's journey through death and resurrection. Then, one of the most famous cathedrals in the world in Rome, France, here it is, Rome, France. The north transept of the cathedral features a stained glass window depicting the phoenix, surrounded by scenes from the life of Christ. Then there's the 10th century Exeter book. It contains phoenix symbolism relating to Christ. The Aberdeen bestiary of the 12th century. It links phoenix imagery to Christian resurrection. So there's no mistaking here that this hijacking took place. Yeah, no one's making anything up here as to what happened. And the math don't lie. You saw it in the arithmetic. Now, let's continue along that vein because we're not done here. You guys know I've shown hundreds of these depictions in old art. Hundreds. Look at all these people, guys. What are these people doing? They're ass naked. Why are they naked? The phoenix, they're looking up and basically worshiping the phoenix, but the phoenix has its wings spread. What is this showing? It's showing systemic reset. People are only naked after a reset. Adam and Eve reset in Genesis. They're only naked. Adam and Eve are only ashamed of being naked because total systemic reset, their infrastructure had collapsed. They had survived. They're living as animals. That's what happened. This artistically just might be a date palm in the phoenix on the top of the palm. I don't know. But it's apparently a lot of symbolism here because it starts off as a stone coming out the ground that turns into a tree trunk, and the phoenix with its wings spread out and the people underneath it worshiping it. But I've shown hundreds of these pictures. You need to see Occultus Mysterium. And I'm pretty sure that my mods have already put the link in the description box. All right. So I do have something to show. What we got here? Okay. Now, here's something interesting. In Greek and Roman mythology, the palm tree was associated with various gods and goddesses, including Apollo, Hercules, and Venus. The palm tree was often depicted in art and literature as a symbol of victory, peace, and fertility. In fact, the ancient Greeks believed that the palm tree was the gift from the god Apollo, who planted the first palm tree at Delos, the sacred island of his birth. I need you to process that. I know that a lot of new people to my channel are not having any idea what's being conveyed here, but my Archaix veterans know. The subject matter and the focal point of the book of Revelation is the release of Apollo. Statue of Liberty is Apollo, is a prolific prophecy showing the chain broken. He is released from his bounds. The first seal of the apocalypse was the attack of Apollo Pharmakia on the human family, spiritually damaging the human family by putting something inside of the avatar while also creating division among the human family. That's what the breaking of the first seal was in 2020 and 2021. It's all about Apollo. Now we find out that the Phoenix paw is a gift to humanity from Apollo. Nostradamus, in the lost manuscript, one of his private books that wasn't released to the public, translated by Ottavio Caesar Ramati, found a very interesting deal. Many will die before the Phoenix dies. Now, remember, Caesar Ramati thought that Nostradamus was talking about the year 1903. Why would he think that? I published that material too, widely. 1902 was a Phoenix year. He got real close. Old Testament prophecy, I will darken the earth on a clear day. That's exactly what Phoenix does. Sixth seal of the apocalypse, May 16th, 2040. I've got a whole playlist about this one date. Almost 100 videos total. There was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. Every mountain and island were removed from their places. This is the sixth seal of the apocalypse. This is the return of the Phoenix that I have so widely publicized. This is Nostradamus again. The senseless people will be reawakened by Jesus from their illusions. 6 lenses and a telescope. And I have a true key, which is even more important to pass down. I see coming in my dreams heavy legends, receiving the wave of the sun. The law of the wolves is there to lay blame when it is foreseen that the whole Western world will die. I shall know different times, 2046. So 6 lenses and a telescope? What does it mean? What does Nostradamus mean by 6 lenses and a telescope? Well, I'll stop sharing. All right, get that out the way. Check my chat real quick, make sure everything's going good. What 6 lenses in a telescope in reference to the Phoenix, in reference to the 6th seal? What is he talking about? I'm going to tell you what he's talking about. Nostradamus codified all his material. Revelation, the seals specifically tell you, come and see. And then the first seal's broken. Come and see, and the second seal's broken. Come and see, and the third seal's broken. The third horseman rides out the apocalypse. Come and see, and the fourth horseman rides out, and hell and death follow. Each individual action of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse is the breaking of a seal. Each seal of the apocalypse is broken in a transformative period that gets 2 things happen. Those who are spiritually vacuous accept everything as surface value. They have become carnalized, and they now inherit physicality. Those who are spiritually awakening will be given even more, because each seal is a lens, helping you to see more clearly. This is what apocalypse means, to unveil the covering. Every seal is a lens, 6 lenses in a telescope, and I shall tell you deeper things. 6 lenses in a telescope are 6 seals. And the telescope is the whole collection, allowing you to see further as to what is going on. What is the 6th lens? It's the breaking of the 6th seal. It's the return of the Phoenix phenomenon. It's basically going to wake up most of the world to realize that you swallowed a bunch of Christian bullshit, and none of it's going to help you, because you literally carnalized what was given to you spiritually. Six lenses in a telescope. A telescope is a device to see. What is the telescope? It's the book of Revelation. I told you it's the playbook that they're going by. The release of Apollyon and the breaking of the first seal was 2020. Apollo Pharmakia attacked the human race. So let me get back here. So this was not a presentation. This was not a presentation just exposing Christianity for all being false. All I did in this was show you where these original elements came from, because they're very different from anything in the Old Testament. The Old Testament didn't have all this stuff. Now all of a sudden, this very ancient belief structuring on the tree of life, immortalhood, resurrection from the dead, victory over death. It's all found in the book of Revelation as well. What is the fifth seal? It's a bunch of souls in an altar waiting for God to exact vengeance for what has happened to them. And later on in chapter 9 of Revelation, you see that they are freed. And what is it? They've got they got phoenix palms in their hands. What does that mean? It means after the breaking of the sixth seal, while the rest of the world is going through hell, those who have awakened, they receive their palms. They know, they got it. They understand. And the understanding allows them during the Phoenix phenomenon, during the Great Tribulation period, the wings are extended as armor and protection over those who believe, and those who know, and those who understand. This is a spiritual experience, and that the kingdom of God is within you, and it's not external. It's not what Christianity promotes today, that anything physical that happened in history has any bearing on your spirituality. That is toxic. The behavior of Christians actually shows me that it's toxic, because they are the most triggered, toxic, venomous people I have ever come in contact with. And that's coming from someone who comes out of that world. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But even in the arithmetic, we see in the field that the Phoenix itself was connected to all of this resurrection, total systemic resets, protection of the immortals, the destruction and pain and suffering of those who are still choosing to live in the flesh, the carnalized spirituality, so to speak. It's all there. And the early Christian fathers very cleverly stole the concepts attached to the phoenix and the palm tree of life, attributed them to a figure in history that never existed, and then turned around, built in whole religion, a whole religion out of this by stealing one that already existed. They co-opted Gnosticism, and then they demonized the Gnostics while they tried to fit in all the Gnostic tenets into a historical perspective. It was a 400-year process, and yet it's still so easy to disassemble. It's so easy to show in the first 200 years of the Christian religion how all of this was put together, and how they've been busted time and time and time again. And that's saying something, because they've had 19 centuries to get their shit together. And they still ain't got it together. That's my presentation, guys. That's my presentation. Really appreciate the time you spent with me. How long was this? This was 2 hours and 30 minutes. That's good. That's good. I'll go through the chat here in a little while. My emails, I've been traveling so much I haven't been able to attend to my emails, so I'll be getting to that. But yeah, I've got 2 more books in my arsenal. Actually, I got like 9 more from Booktree. I forgot about those, but I got like 2 more serious books I'm going through, because I need to add them to all the data sets that I already have. I said, yeah, guys, it's really ridiculous. It is so ridiculous that this whole belief system is still propagated today, when there is mountains of data against it. Yeah, man, it's just crazy. It's amazing. But you have to understand too, man, You're a direct result in your daily life of anything that you assume to be true. Because what you assume to be true is going to modify your belief structure, your behavior. Yeah, there's just no Thalius, Stephen Segura, it's not true. Thalius did not document the sun darkening around 30 BC because Thalius was completely made up by the church fathers. He's a fiction. Many historians have looked into the Thalius deal. He didn't even exist. They've had a lot of time to get their shit together, and they still don't. They still ain't got it. I wish George R. R. Martin would finish Song of Ice and Fire. Wish he would. Yeah, it's really embarrassing about the Gospel of Nicodemus, but even the letter of Pontius Pilate, that's so embarrassing. It is so embarrassing. They went into explicit detail about how the sun darkened, earthquake, and all that, and then turn around and scholars look at it and they see how it's cited, the structuring, and like, oh my God. All these Christian writers, man, never had access to this document when this document appears. And it is 100%, even by Christian academics across the board, denounced as a complete fabrication. That's embarrassing. It's really embarrassing when we have a list, this massive list of documents, and we have to go through them and say, oh, you know what? It's all very interesting. They all promote Jesus and Christianity, but they've all been dismissed as forgeries. That's embarrassing. That's crazy. So, yeah, man, absolutely crazy. I don't know what the next live is probably going to be once I'm back in Texas. Maybe not. I'll be back in Texas before I do the next live. But you'll have some. You might have some road rage or a time or two. You might get that. I don't know. I'll pick a topic and just rant. You definitely got another van vlog coming. So I'm not gonna be in that van all cooped up driving and not running my mouth. You already know that. All right, guys. Well, I don't really have any announcements. I don't think I have any announcements right now. Not really sure. Almost not, because I can't think of any. It's so quiet in here that I'm just barely speaking. So I'm glad my microphone is really good. All right. Yeah, this thing here, I'm really upset with this thing here. This microphone is so good that it picks up my tires on the concrete. It picks up everything but my voice. Oh my God. Yeah, man. All right. Monica, you look real good with that wrench. I know Monica personally. I've met her a couple times. Louisiana. All right, let's see here. Wow, I got a video file in here somewhere. Let's see, desktop. I need to get with Martin again. It's been a while since I had Martin on the channel. I need to see what he's doing. I've been so busy. I need to reach out to old Martin. He always entertains the shit out of us. But you know what? It's that type of season, so I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna go with a different outro, guys. Yeah, I love you guys.